Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Jamie Lee and I talk about beauty, lifestyle, makeup, nails, all the things. I love all the things. So welcome if you're new here, welcome back if you're not. Today I want to talk to you guys about makeup packaging that I hate. Hate is a strong word. Strongly dislike. I saw Kelly Gooch do this on her channel and it was really inspiring to me. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, there's so many types of packaging that I can't stand. I am going to do a follow-up video to this with makeup packaging that I love. So stay tuned for that. If you do enjoy this, make sure you subscribe before you leave. Let's dive in. So first things first, unnecessarily bulky packaging. There's one brand in particular that is very guilty of this, and that is Physicians Formula. So Physicians Formula, this is their Butter Bronzer. This is a cult classic for a reason. It's a fabulous bronzer. However, it is so bulky. It takes up so much more room than a typical compact. You can see that it's like double the depth. I realize that we do get a lot of product in this. However, they've left this big space underneath. Who is using this? Who is using this weird sponge to apply their... Raise your hand in the comments below if you use this. But they could literally get rid of this whole section that houses that sponge, and it could be so much more compact, so much more streamlined, easier to travel with. I never travel with this bronzer because it's so bulky. It just takes up so much room. I do love the product inside, but I really don't love this packaging. And they also do these loose powders. I love these powders. Nobody talks about these, but I really like these. These are the Physicians Formula Mineral Loose Powders. This is ridiculous looking. Like, come on. So you lift this up. They have a little spot for a brush, which I've thrown away because who uses that? And then you've got the sifter on top. And what I end up doing quite often is ripping this piece off altogether and sifting it into the lid. But I just don't understand why they can't put it in something like this. I just don't get it. It's unnecessarily bulky. I can't put it in my drawer here where I would normally put my powders. It has to just kind of sit on top. I can't travel with this. If you do travel with this, this tends to open because it's not like a screw top and then you've got powder everywhere. It's just not practical. And I've been buying this product, I'm gonna say, for at least 12 years. Like, I've been buying this for a very long time and it has always looked like this. So I just don't understand why they can't put it in something better. The other thing I should mention is that Physicians Formula, even though it's a drugstore brand, it's one of the more expensive drugstore brands out there. So I feel like for the price you pay, they should have something a little bit more beautiful in terms of packaging. Another one kind of similar to that is the Milani Baked Blushes. This is the Bella Bellini. I have that on today. Luminoso is another very popular one. I have that one in a drawer over here. But again, it's a beautiful blush, but it's so bulky because they've done the same thing. They've left you a space for a weird brush that no one's using. Like, I just can't even imagine applying a blush with something like this. Like, look at it. No. So I can't stand that. I wish they'd come out with something, again, a little bit more streamlined. I know it's going to be a little bit bulky because it's a baked formula and it is raised, but there's just got to be a more compact way to do that. On that same vein of including spots for weird brushes, palettes that include a spot for a brush. Now, this is the ABH Riviera palette. A lot of palettes have this though. They include a brush with the palette. So when you buy it, you get a brush, and I should mention, it's a good brush. I like that they include a brush, but I don't like that they've left a spot for it in the palette. I would much rather this palette be a little bit smaller. It wouldn't have to be this thick if it wasn't for the brush slot. I would prefer that they give us the cardboard box with the brush inside and have the actual palette be a little bit more streamlined. While we're talking about palettes, let's talk about soft touch packaging. Now, I love nice packaging, and when you first get like a soft touch palette, it's like, ooh, that looks so nice. It looks so beautiful. Good example of that is the Norvina palette. A lot of the ABH palettes have this almost velvet texture to them. I've managed to keep this one quite clean, but over time when you have a little bit of makeup on your hands, it is going to get on that soft touch. A good example of that is the Cover FX. This is their Perfector Face Palette. This one has that soft touch matte packaging. I don't know if you guys can see how dirty that looks. There's like brown fingerprints all over it. You can't wipe it off. I've tried. That drives me crazy. Like, just give me a nice shiny plastic. Maybe it doesn't look as expensive, but at least it stays looking nice. I just feel like this looks so messy as time goes on. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube talking about like the Modern Renaissance palette like this, which is quite a few years old, and it's dirty and grubby and fingerprints everywhere. And it just, I rather it look a little less fancy initially, but stay looking nice than have it look really nice when I get it and have it look like a dog's breakfast after a couple of months of owning it. Something else I can't stand with palette packaging is wasted space. Come on. There's 6 eyeshadows in this entire palette, and it's the same, it's larger than the Norvina palette, which has 16 colors in it. This has 6 eyeshadows in it and 2 highlights. I just feel like there's so much wasted space inside this palette. It drives me crazy. I would love to have seen, this is a great palette. This is the Suva Beauty Protege palette. The quality of this is beautiful, and I like that they've done coordinated highlighters. So there's sort of a gold highlighter here to go with these more copper tones, and there's sort of a pink highlighter here to go with these more pinky cranberry tones. I do like that. I like a coordinated palette in that sense. But if they had just done all of them square and added an extra transition color for these 2 sets, because you've got a matte here that's basically like your all over color, and you've got a matte here which is basically your deepening shade, and then you've got your 2 metallics in the middle. If they had done the packaging a little bit differently, they could have added one more color, something deeper than this, but not as deep as this, for a nice transition shade. Anytime I reach into this palette, I know I'm gonna have to grab another palette in order to make like a full look, if you know what I mean. The last point I want to make about palettes is just unnecessarily complicated packaging. So this is the Urban Decay Heavy Metals palette. This was a Christmas release from a few years ago. Again, you can see all the fingerprints on the outside of it. It drives me crazy. But at least this one you can wipe off because it is that shiny plastic. But the way they did this, okay, now I have 2 pieces. So I have to have somewhere to set that down. If you're like me, you have a desk. Well, I have a desk in front of me, but there's a pile of makeup all over it. So I don't have a lot of surface area to set down like multiple pieces from one eyeshadow palette. And before I had this set up, I did my makeup in my bathroom where I don't have a counter. All I have is a sink. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, doing your makeup at your bathroom sink where you've got your palette basically in your sink. Now you've got 2 different pieces. And not only that, you've got this weird mirror kind of in the middle. I would have rathered have a smaller palette with no mirror, more compact, less bulky, easier to store. I would never travel with this. It's heavy, it's awkward. I mean, I get what they were trying to do with that sort of metallic packaging. I get what they were doing, and I appreciate the presentation, but in terms of like a permanent product in my collection, this just, it's not the ideal packaging. It's not that practical. Something else I can't stand now, this is less of a company problem as it is like a BoxyCharm Ipsy situation, but I got this highlighter in I think in an Ipsy bag, maybe it was a BoxyCharm, I can't remember, but every once in a while we'll get one of these little single things like this. I don't have a Z palette to put this in. I don't have a magnetic palette, so this just lives in my collection like this. I wish if companies were gonna put out products like this, just put it in a tiny little cheap compact. Like, I get that it's meant to go into a larger magnetic palette, but I feel like a lot of people aren't doing those anymore. Most people aren't buying single shadows. Most people are not buying their highlights in singles like this. Most people are buying palettes, or they're buying singles like this. Put it in some sort of a packaging. It doesn't have to be expensive. I can only imagine that this probably doesn't cost that much less than putting something in like something little like this, like a little cardboard thing. That can't be that expensive to make. I would much prefer to have something like that than something like this. I hardly ever reach for this because I have to keep it in its little box. I'm just not a fan of those weird little singles. Now, let's talk about makeup that you can't see inside the product. Okay, so this drives me crazy. So I have a couple of examples of this. First one would be this blush. What color is it? You have to open it up to find out. It's this color. But I don't care if I can't see through the top of it if they put a little sticker on the back with the color. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to have to, if you had, I only have one of these, but if you had like 6 blushes from this same brand, you would have to open them all to find the color that you're looking for. I find that so annoying. How difficult would it be to just put a sticker on the back, like the same sticker that's in black? Couldn't they have just done a sticker in the color of the blush so that we could know what color it is? Another example of that is lipsticks. Most lipsticks have some sort of an indicator on the bottom or on the top as to what color is inside. Some don't, and that drives me crazy. So e.l.f. does that with their, I think these are just their like cream lip formulas. I'm not sure, but this is an e.l.f. lipstick. There's no colored sticker on the bottom. There's no indicator at all. You have to actually open it up and look at it. Well, I have about 4 of these. It drives me crazy. I don't want to have to open all of them up. Smashbox B Legendary lipsticks are that way. Same thing, you have to open it up to see what color it is. MAC lipsticks are notoriously like that. I actually don't have any MAC lipsticks anymore, but I can remember a time where I had 6 or 7 of them, and they all have a sticker on the bottom. None of the stickers are colored. All the packaging looks exactly the same. So you have to open them all up and see, like when I see YouTubers do like declutters or makeup collection videos where they have a whole drawer full of MAC lipsticks, I'm always like, oh my gosh, you have 55 lipsticks that all look exactly the same. Can you imagine if you're looking for a specific color? It would take forever. This Elizabeth Arden one, same thing. It's a beautiful gold package. Love the packaging. I wouldn't change anything about this other than having a colored sticker on the bottom. That way I can store them upside down. I can clearly see what color is inside instead of having to open it up every time. I found that very irritating. Now, if you're somebody that only has 4 lipsticks, this is probably not a problem for you, but for somebody like me that has drawers full of lipsticks, lip glosses, liquid lipsticks, I mean, liquid lipstick and lip glosses are usually pretty good about being the color of the product, but lipsticks, but bullet lipsticks in particular seem to be sort of a culprit for doing that. Another lip thing that drives me crazy is lip pencils where the covers don't stay on. Raise your hand in the comments below if you have a lip liner bouncing around the bottom of your purse with no cover on it. I find that so annoying. These are the e.l.f. Longwear lip liners. You can see I've lost the lid off of one. And so once you lose the lid off of it, the product inside dries up and makes a mess inside your purse. This one's got like dirt on the end of it. I only kept this to show you. I'm going to get rid of it, but I kept it for an example. These lids are just so like loosely on there, and I've stopped buying them. These are great little pencils. They're like $1 a piece, but I've stopped buying the e.l.f. lip liners for this reason, because they just get all mangled inside my purse. So another example of packaging that I don't care for is these pump style products where you can't tell how much is left. This is the e.l.f. Blemish Control Face Primer. This is one of my favorite primers, actually. It's not that expensive. I think it's like $6 or $7. Love this so much. This is my go-to primer when my skin is really oily or when my skin is breaking out really badly. The problem with this is the opaque packaging. You can't see through it, and because this is one of my holy grail products, I can never be sure how much is in here. So I always have to just have one on backup in case today's the day I go to use it and it's empty. I just would prefer if it was in some sort of like a squeezy tube. That way you get some semblance of an idea of how far along in the product you are. And along that same vein, primers that come in pots. I don't want to have to stick my finger in my primer. I haven't used this one yet. This is just an example. But especially with something like a primer, I am not going to go through this quickly. So that means I'm sticking my finger in it, I'm closing the lid, and it's going to sit in my collection for probably a year, maybe longer. How much bacteria do you think is going to grow inside of there in that time? A lot. Could this not have been in some sort of a tube or a pump or something so that I wasn't cross-contaminating this every time I use it? I know a lot of moisturizers come in pots, but the thing about a moisturizer is that I'm using up a moisturizer in a month, 2 months, fairly quickly, whereas something like this is going to be in my collection for a good long while. So I would just prefer if this was in a better type of packaging for the type of product that it is. And again, on that same vein, hair treatments in these giant tubs. This is the Schwarzkopf Blonde Me Keratin Restore Bonding Mask. I get this from my hairstylist. I love this product, love it so much. I've used a lot of it. The problem with something like this is, and I can imagine this is the same problem in the salon setting, my hands are wet when I'm using this. So I'm reaching like wet hands into this tub. I'm like scooping it out. It's all up underneath my nails. Now I have like a handful of product. I've got this in my hand. So I'm setting it down. I'm just setting the lid on top, putting this through my hair. And by the time I go to actually like screw the lid back on, there's water inside of it. It's a whole thing. I would just prefer it to be in a tube. I don't know why that's so difficult. Does anybody else feel the same way about these types of things? I find like I've bought the, Redken makes a couple of different ones that come in tubs like this, and I find more often than not I don't end up repurchasing them because I rather have something in a tube. Comment below if you're with me on that one. And then lastly, I want to talk about a couple of different foundation packaging styles that I'm not a fan of. First of all, this is the Maybelline Fit Me Hydrate and Smooth foundation. Why doesn't this have a pump? Why? These are the foundations that I actually have in my kit for doing makeup applications on clients. This drives me crazy, so I have to dump this out like onto my hand and go in with a sponge or a brush or whatever. It's so hard to control how much product is coming out of here. It like runs all over the place. It's a huge mess. I just don't know. I would rather pay a little bit more for the product and have there be a pump on top than a cap like this. It just, to me, feels like such a cop-out. And then on the other side of that same token, this one doesn't have a pump either. It has a doe foot applicator. This is the Physicians Formula, the Healthy Foundation. This has been discontinued, but there are quite a few foundations like this where it has the giant doe foot applicator, which is fine if you're only using it on yourself. However, you're still cross-contaminating. Every time you put that on your face and put it back inside the bottle, you're putting bacteria inside of the bottle. I mean, probably you're using your foundation up quickly enough that it's not going to be a huge problem, but if you have a lot of different foundations, that might not be the case. It's probably going to go bad a little bit faster because of the bacteria that collects inside of there. And the other thing to mention about this is if you are a makeup artist or somebody that does makeup on other people, you can't apply that doe foot applicator to a bunch of different people and put it back inside of the bottle. You just can't. It's not sanitary. So then you're like trying to get it off of the doe foot applicator onto the back of your hand, onto a palette, something like that. It's hard to get very much off of this to do that. It's really meant to be sort of striped onto the face. Just put it in a pump. I don't know why. So those are all of the sort of packaging pet peeves that I could think of off the top of my head. I'd love to hear from you guys down below in the comments. What are some pet peeves that you guys have about products that you've tried? I'd love to hear from you. I think it's a really fun conversation. This is not that serious. Don't take it too seriously. If these are products that you love, I love them too. I just wish they were in better packaging. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.